Once upon a time, in a land filled with green meadows and whispering woods, there lived a king who had 3 sons. The 2 older brothers were clever in their own minds. They believed they were destined for great things. They were often boastful and sometimes quite thoughtless. The youngest son was named Witling. His brothers thought he was simple and often made fun of him, calling him names. But Witling had a heart full of something his brothers lacked, a deep and gentle kindness. He saw the world not as something to conquer, but as something to care for. He found joy in the smallest of things, a lesson we could all learn from. One day, the 3 brothers decided to go out into the world to seek their fortunes. As they walked through the forest, the 2 older brothers saw an anthill teeming with busy ants. "Let's kick it over," they shouted with glee. "It will be fun to watch them scurry in panic." But Witling stepped in front of the anthill, his arms outstretched. "Please leave them in peace," he pleaded softly. "They have done us no harm. I will not let you disturb their hard work." The brothers grumbled but moved on, leaving the ants to their important tasks. A little later they came to a lake where a family of ducks was swimming peacefully. The older brothers saw the ducks and thought of a cruel game. "Let's catch 2 of them and roast them for our dinner," they exclaimed, ready to chase the frightened birds. Once again, Witling intervened. "Leave these creatures alone," he said firmly. "They are enjoying the water and their family. I will not let you harm them." He stood by the water's edge until his brothers gave up, and the ducks quacked their thanks as they swam safely away. Their path then led them to a large tree with a beehive hanging from a branch. Honey was dripping from the hive, and the air buzzed with the sound of bees. "Let's build a fire under the tree," the eldest brother suggested. "We can smoke out the bees and take all their delicious honey for ourselves." But Witling, with a heart as sweet as the honey itself, could not bear the thought. "The bees work so hard for their honey," he said. "To burn their home would be a terrible thing. Please, let us leave them be." His compassion saved the bees, and the queen bee herself seemed to nod at him before he and his grumbling brothers continued on their way. As evening began to draw its soft grey cloak over the land, the brothers arrived at a silent and mysterious castle. Everything was made of stone, and an eerie quiet hung in the air. The gates were open, as if waiting for them. Inside, they found stone horses in the stables and stone figures in the grand halls. It was a place held captive by a powerful enchantment, a spell of deep sleep. A little grey man, a guardian of the castle, appeared before them. He told them that to break the spell and bring the castle back to life, they must complete 3 very difficult tasks. If they failed, they too would be turned to stone. The first task was a true test of patience and sight. The little man led them to a bed of soft moss in the castle garden. Hidden deep within the green moss were 1,000 pearls, scattered like tiny dewdrops. "The king's daughter has lost her pearls," the man explained. "You must find every single one before the sun sets. If even 1 pearl is missing, you will fail." The 2 older brothers laughed at such a task. They searched for a while, but their patience quickly wore thin. They found only 100 or so before giving up, and as dusk fell, they were turned to cold, hard stone for their failure. The next morning, it was Witling's turn to face the challenge. He looked at the vast carpet of moss, and his heart sank a little. How could he possibly find 1,000 tiny pearls all by himself? He sat down and thought not of the reward, but of the impossible nature of the task. He remembered the ants he had saved, whose tiny eyes and tireless work seemed perfectly suited for such a challenge. He wished they could be there to help him. He did not ask with greed, but with a humble heart that simply needed a friend. He knew he could not do it alone. The second task sounded just as impossible as the first. The little man told Witling that the key to the princess's bedchamber lay at the very bottom of the deep, dark lake in the castle grounds. "You must retrieve the key," the guardian instructed. "It is the only way to reach the sleeping princesses and discover the final challenge." Witling peered into the murky water. He could not see the bottom. It was a task that required something more than human skill. He thought of the ducks he had protected, who could dive so gracefully into the water. He wondered if they remembered his kindness. Witling sat by the moss, feeling quite hopeless. Just as he was about to despair, he saw a long line marching towards him. It was the king of the ants, leading his entire army of 5,000 ants, the very ones Witling had saved from his brothers. The ant king bowed his little head, and without a word, set his subjects to work. The tiny, diligent creatures swarmed over the moss. They searched under every leaf and behind every pebble. It was a marvelous sight to behold. In a very short time, they had gathered all 1,000 pearls into a neat, shimmering pile. Witling's heart filled with gratitude. With the first task complete, Witling went to the edge of the lake to face the second. He stood there, looking at his reflection in the still, dark water, wondering how he could ever find a small key in such a vast and deep place. Just then, he heard a happy quacking sound. The family of ducks he had saved from his brothers swam right up to him. They remembered his kindness. The mother and father duck dove deep into the water, their webbed feet paddling powerfully. A moment later they surfaced, and in the mother duck's beak was the shiny golden key to the princess's bedchamber. Witling thanked them with all his heart. Holding the key, Witling went to the final task. The little grey man led him to a large room where 3 princesses lay sleeping. They all looked exactly alike, beautiful and peaceful. "The final task is the most difficult," the man whispered. "One of these is the youngest and kindest princess. You must choose her. The only clue is this: before she fell asleep." Media group. Close-up of 3 identical sleeping princesses. Dreamy shot of sleeping princesses with sugar, syrup and honey nearby. At stock. At distribute _equally. The eldest ate a piece of sugar, the second a bit of syrup, and the youngest a spoonful of honey. Witling looked at the 3 identical faces. How could he possibly know which was the correct one? There was no way to tell just by looking. His mind raced, trying to think of a solution. He felt a gentle buzz near his ear. He turned and saw the queen bee, the very one whose hive he had protected from the fire. She had come to help him in his final moment of need. The queen bee flew gracefully around the room. She flew past the first princess. She flew past the second. Then she landed gently on the lips of the third princess, the one who had tasted the sweet honey. Witling knew at once that this was the one. He pointed to her and declared, "This is the youngest princess." The moment Witling made his choice, the entire castle trembled and awoke. The enchantment was broken. The stone figures turned back into people, the horses in the stables began to neigh, and the sound of life and laughter filled the grand halls once more. The 2 older brothers, now returned to their human form, stood by, ashamed and amazed at what their simple younger brother had accomplished. The youngest princess, who was indeed the kindest, opened her eyes and smiled at Witling. She saw the goodness in him, a quality far more valuable than cleverness or strength. The king and queen, overjoyed to have their daughter and their kingdom back, welcomed Witling as a hero. They saw that his gentle spirit was a sign of true strength and wisdom. The older brothers learned a valuable lesson that day. They understood that their thoughtless cruelty had brought them nothing but failure, while Witling's compassion had saved an entire kingdom. They asked for his forgiveness, and Witling, with his ever-kind heart, forgave them freely. He knew that everyone deserves a chance to learn and become better. The castle was filled with celebration and music. Witling married the youngest princess, and they ruled the kingdom together with fairness and a deep love for all living things. He never forgot the friends who had helped him, the ants, the ducks, and the bees. He made sure that all creatures in his kingdom were treated with respect and kindness. His story was told for many years, a gentle reminder to everyone, young and old, that a compassionate heart holds the greatest power of all. It shows us that no act of kindness, no matter how small it may seem, is ever wasted. And so, the tale of Witling teaches us a beautiful and simple truth. It is not always the strongest or the cleverest who find true happiness, but those who are kind. By caring for the smallest and most helpless creatures, Witling found the help he needed to achieve great things. His success was not a matter of luck, but a reward for the goodness he showed to the world. It is a wonderful thought, isn't it? That by opening our hearts to others, we open the door to our own greatest adventures and our deepest joy.